WWE is breaking down the fourth wall with WWE Unreal, which just premiered today on Netflix. 5 episodes highlighting some of the biggest PLEs that they've had and all of the drama that ensued surrounding it. Now, here's the question. Should you be watching? Ahead of this show, I had a lot of people that were kind of in my chat saying that they were kind of nervous that this was going to ruin the pro wrestling industry by giving people way too much information that they shouldn't know about. I had some people saying that this was going to be hard for them to sort of break away and be able to like sit into the reality of pro wrestling, right? Like they didn't want to have to suspend their disbelief so much. So I did see a lot of those concerns from people. However, I was on the side of, you know what? I'm interested because I feel at this point, I am so interested and so involved in pro wrestling. And I feel like those of you who listen to podcasts, who follow pro wrestling very closely, I didn't feel like there was anything that Unreal could do that would make you find it harder to be able to be interested in pro wrestling. So I just spent the last several hours binge watching the entire show so that I could do this review for you guys. So 5 episodes. What did we get and was it worth it? So I gotta be honest here. I loved the show. And here's the thing, I wasn't really so sure that I was going to be super invested in the show because I thought, like, damn, WWE, how are they gonna produce this? How are they gonna make this feel like you got just enough, but also maybe not too much, but also not enough, right? You want to find a happy balance because we know that WWE isn't going to fully air their dirty laundry out for millions of people to see on Netflix, right? But they're going to give you just enough so that you feel like it was worth your time tuning into the show. And that's what I feel we got with Unreal. So who is this show really for? Is it for WWE fans? Is it for casuals? Who is it for? So that was one of my biggest questions. And I felt that as the episodes went on, in the beginning for episode 1, I started to feel like, oh my God, this is for my auntie, for someone who doesn't know anything about wrestling but has a Netflix subscription. At first, that's what I was thinking because they were kind of explaining a lot of stuff that pretty much every single pro wrestling fan knows. And the way that they were talking and presenting the material, I thought, okay, I'm probably not going to get that much out of this, right? So for people who aren't pro wrestling fans, for those that are just casual, I feel that coming out of this docuseries, they're going to come out, I hope, with far more respect for the pro wrestling business than ever before, because there will be people that are not hardcore wrestling fans that will be watching the show. After all, Netflix is a major streaming platform and people just like to watch things because for a lot of people, they might just have Netflix as a service. And I know that when the Vince McMahon documentary came out, I know that there was a lot of people that I know are not wrestling fans that did tune in to watch the Vince McMahon documentary. So it makes me feel that people will actually tune in to Unreal and see like, okay, what is this pro wrestling stuff all about? So on one hand, those people, they're going to get so much information. Like they're going to be hit with dodgeballs in terms of information. Now, for the hardcore wrestling fans, I feel that the best thing about this is just seeing the interactions between the wrestlers, seeing the behind the scenes footage, seeing some of the ha-ha, cute, funny moments, and seeing how some of these wrestlers live and how they travel. I thought that episode 1, so I'm going to kind of start with that. Episode 1 focused on Raw doing the premiere on Netflix, right? And I thought that the best thing about episode 1 was Rhea Ripley. It was Rhea Ripley because she was the one that was basically talking about how nervous she was for such a big show. And she talked about why she was so nervous and what this feud with Liv Morgan meant like for her. And to me, it was really interesting to see that because throughout the entire show, that was one of the big things that I noticed was how nervous performers, even at this level, get. And I think we all sort of knew this already, that performers get nervous, right? Because at the end of the day, even though they're super famous, they're rich and mega celebrities, they're also still human. And humans are going to get nervous when you are performing in front of millions of people. You're live television, you can't mess up at all. And so, for me, I've worked in pro wrestling, right? Like I've been behind the scenes. I've been a ring announcer. I've been a commentator. I've done the thing, interviewing, stuff like that. And of course, that was to a smaller level. But still, I remember kind of seeing like indie wrestlers, they would be kind of, nervous and stuff. And I wondered always, what is that? What's that like on a higher level? And I feel that this show not only made me realize that these wrestlers, even at the highest level, still get nervous, but also it made them much more human, much more relatable. Even little things like Rhea Ripley saying, like, damn, I kind of felt like I ate too much for Christmas holidays, and I didn't feel like I could get myself into this gear. That for me was super relatable. And I think that whether you're a man or a woman, you're still going to relate to that in some sort of sense. So it was little things like that that I enjoyed from the show. So one of the things I didn't like from episode 1, which it's not even that I didn't like it, I just felt that because we know so much of it, I kind of felt like they did gloss over a lot of the real, drama that went down between Seth Rollins and CM Punk. There was nothing about Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, and this kind of tied into what they were talking a little bit in the beginning. And even when they talked about Triple H and CM Punk and CM Punk's brief history with WWE, they didn't really dive into any of that, which I get it was not really the premise of the show and what they were doing, but I did feel like it was glossed over so fast that if you are somebody that has no idea, I guess if you're somebody that has no idea, maybe it doesn't matter. But when you have so much information and you know all this stuff, it is kind of funny because you're just looking at that like, haha, they just glossed over so much information. And there's so much information that a person who does not know about all of these stories would not know. So that was just a little minor thing, but not really a big deal. The other thing that I did love and I thought was very fascinating was, okay, so when I worked with Ring of Honor, I was able to get a glimpse as to how things work in the production truck because I sat in the production truck. And also now, as of late, we've been seeing companies like AEW where they show people what it's like being in the production truck and stuff like that, right? So being in person, seeing it on TV, I have always found production super, super interesting. And that was one of the favorite things, my favorite things of this entire series was seeing like Triple H in gorilla position and the producers and the agents put matches together and call the shots that the directors know. And I think for a lot of people that may not be aware of that kind of stuff and what kind of roles people play in production, I think that that's going to be a very fun element of watching this show. Episode 2 of Unreal. I thought episode 2 was actually my least favorite of the entire 5-episode series, and it was the one focusing on the Royal Rumble. I thought that the only real interesting parts was hearing the writing team that all of them had voted for CM Punk to win this Royal Rumble, right? Like all of them were like, when Triple H asked, who do you think should win the Rumble? Everybody said CM Punk. And then it was Michael Hayes that threw out Jey Uso. And that was one of my favorite things about watching this series too, was how endearing it was to see Triple H and everybody basically like really uplift Jey Uso. I felt that they were very, very supportive of him. And in a later episode, they do kind of talk a little bit about a rough patch that Jey Uso was having heading into WrestleMania. So that is discussed. And I wasn't even expecting for them to discuss that, which I thought was part of the element that made it cool to actually see that, hey, they were aware of Jey Uso and some of what was going on before, he got to WrestleMania, right? But I did think that the support for him and how much they believe in him, I felt that that came out very, very crystal clear on this show. The other thing I kept thinking about while watching Unreal was what this show would look like if Vince McMahon was still in charge. And I thought, well, we would never know because this show would never be out there if Vince McMahon was still in charge. Can you imagine that? Like, seriously, it was something that I started to think about while watching because this is the Triple H era, right? He is the face of pretty much everything. He's doing the WrestleMania commercials. He's narrating things. He's doing this. He's the one walking everybody through everything. So it does feel like something that is he's bringing a different vision, something that we're not used to seeing in the world of pro wrestling, especially because for such a long time everything was so hush hush. Episode 3 was the women's one. I feel like that one had the most emphasis on women, and we followed Charlotte Flair in her injury and her, recovery and coming back. I thought that was really cool to see. We got to see her go into surgery, being there with her dad, Ric Flair. I thought that was a really great behind the scenes. I loved Chelsea Green in this episode so much because Chelsea has a very fun personality. She's a very relatable girl. She almost feels like she is truly talking to you, a friend. And so for me, I felt like I was relating very much to Chelsea, but her story in this was great because she was talking about WWE Survivor Series Vancouver, right? And how she wanted to be part of that, how she bought all of these tickets for her family, and then she wasn't even booked on the show. And you feel so bad for her, but then she closes it off by saying that's show business. And if anybody knows the ups and downs of pro wrestling, Chelsea Green can definitely attest to that. So I just thought that Chelsea was so raw and real in this. I mean, I really think mostly everybody was, but I found that the women, especially like Rhea and Chelsea and Charlotte, were so vulnerable in what they gave in this documentary, that docuseries, that it made me just vibe with them even more so. The other thing that I enjoyed was the camaraderie between the women, because we've known this through interviews and how the women interact with each other. And even though I'm sure they argue and things like that happen, it didn't necessarily feel like there was as much cattiness. Now, of course, we'll get later on to the Tiffany, Stratton, Charlotte Flair stuff, but for now, where we're at, this was very nice. You see them praying in the back with Raquel. It was just very enjoyable to see how they interact with each other. Episode 4 was the Elimination Chamber episode, and that's the one where you actually saw the girls praying. Sorry, I was confusing it with episode 3. But anyway, so in this one, the focus was John Cena turning heel. Now, this was one of the biggest selling points, in my opinion, of me wanting to tune into Unreal. I wanted to tune into Unreal to see what they were going to give us in regards to this Rock, John Cena, Triple H stuff, and everything else that came out afterwards. I don't really feel that I got too much from this episode in regards to this story. I feel that if you watch the 1 little minute video that they did as a teaser to promote this, I feel like you pretty much got it all. I felt that I wanted to see, I don't even know. I think I wanted to see more of the fallout. It felt like a lot of the fallout wasn't really necessarily talked about, right? And I guess that came way later, but even throughout like the entire docuseries, I was sort of waiting on them to maybe touch on the Rock stuff with Pat McAfee's show where he talked about the WrestleMania ending and things like that. But this one here, in this specific episode though, focusing primarily on John Cena's heel turn, I thought the best part was really just hearing about how it all came together. But even then, hearing them say like, oh, I started talking to this person, and then this person started talking to that person, and we all got together, and there was 45-minute conversations here and 45-minute conversations there. And I'm thinking to myself, with all of these conversations and everybody talking and everybody doing all of this, how the hell did we end up with The Rock wanting Cody Rhodes' soul as the best possible outcome for a story? That's what I could not shake off. The entire time I kept thinking that was the best we could do, The Rock wanting Cody's soul. What? Like, that's what I kept thinking about the entire time. I was baffled, but whatever. It happened. We live with it. Whatever. We're moving on, right? I always love to see Triple H and The Rock's interactions, and I feel like maybe I read too much into them. I like to see like body language and how they respond to each other, and they always seem very, very cordial to each other. So there's only so much you can possibly read, but that is one of the enjoyable aspects of seeing these people interact behind the scene, seeing the guys put their Elimination Chamber match together, things of that nature. Seeing how much, by the way, this episode and even in the last episode, seeing how much Triple H cares about the talent, but also like even Rhea Ripley. Like Rhea Ripley throughout this entire series, you see her in the beginning really like be nervous about the Netflix premiere. And then by the end, once we get to the last episode, she's ready and excited for WrestleMania. And Triple H is telling her, you know, she's the very best and she's the best to ever do it. And oh my God, one of my favorite parts, by the way, was Triple H acknowledging that the women just freaking get it. He was telling Shane Helms, he was whispering in his ear, basically saying that if you go down to the PC, for every one guy that's good, there's 5 women that are better. And I just thought, yes, I've been saying this like as a person who covers NXT on a weekly basis. And I really do think in so many ways, the women just get it. And like with the dramatics of the Elimination Chamber with Naomi and Jade and Bianca's storyline, like the dramatics were just so good and they got it and they are being seen for them. So I did like this episode a whole lot too. But the best episode that they had was the final episode, which was surrounding the 2-day WrestleMania event. Now, there was a lot in this one. God, so many funny moments. CM Punk interacted with literally everybody on the show, but him asking if Charlotte Flair shit her pants. Yes, that is a topic, guys. The wrestlers were talking about shitting their pants. We've known that CM Punk had shit his pants before because he's talked about it very famously on the Cole Cabana podcast, but I didn't realize how many wrestlers do shit their pants. And it was so funny because he asked Charlotte, and I'm thinking, even if Charlotte would have at some point shit her pants, never tell the guys, hey, I shit my pants. So, but it was really funny, a very funny moment. I loved to see that whole thing. I love to see Rhea talking about her big match with Bianca and Io and how excited she was for that and how they put that together and seeing them come out from the match and then get this massive round of applause. Bruce is watching it and he's like so obsessed with what they're doing and is legitimately blown away. And you can kind of tell also the people in Gorilla when they really like something and when they thought something was fine. Because when they thought something was fine, it was like, hey, good job. Hey, good job, right? But when they thought something was great, it was like, we got to stand up, applaud, like, oh my God, going crazy type of deal. And so you do kind of see a little bit of that difference, but still, it's just a cool moment. So I did like seeing those aspects of the final episode. The final episode was the best episode. The 2 other moments that I enjoyed from episode 5 was the Charlotte Flair, Tiffany Stratton stuff. Now, we did know for a long time now, we knew pretty much when it was happening that there was legit heat between Charlotte and Tiffany with some of their stuff that they were said during that SmackDown promo. And we finally got to see what it was like backstage when it actually happened. So, you know, basically Tiffany Stratton had to apologize to Charlotte Flair. Now, here's the thing. With wrestling, you just never really know what's legit, what's not. These could be legitimate reactions or they can have been acted out reactions. That I'm not so sure about, but whatever. They didn't show, by the way, when Tiffany Stratton had to go and apologize to Charlotte Flair. They didn't show any of that. But they did show Triple H's reaction. He just basically said, that's not how we do it here. And Tiffany has to apologize because it was the divorce line that basically pissed off Charlotte Flair. And so it felt very legitimate to me. But again, these are all professionals. So take it with what you will. Still a fun time, though. Still a fun time. And then the other thing that I did enjoy seeing was also the disagreement in the writer's room as to how things were going to end for the WrestleMania Triple Threat main event with Roman, Seth, and Punk. I thought that was appealing to see too, just kind of people bouncing off of ideas. And that is something you see throughout the entire show is the writer's room sort of giving ideas and what we're going to do with this person and what we're going to do with that person. And so I did like all of that. Now, I feel like there's still a lot more that could be seen. Like, I felt like, we were clearly focusing on certain wrestlers, but there's still so many other wrestlers that I would love to see more of. And what this felt like watching Unreal, I felt like I got a brand new insight look into pretty much the whole year that has already happened. So I felt like I also relived this entire year while sitting here watching this series. So all in all, I liked the show. Those were my favorite parts, the ones that I just mentioned. Let me know if you guys did watch Unreal and how you guys felt about it. I think it's worth the watch. I think if you're a WWE fan, you'll like to see your favorites interact. You'll have even more respect for them and the work that they do, and you're also maybe even going to relate to them a lot more, seeing how nervous they get or how excited and how emotional they get. Seeing CM Punk crying because he's finally main eventing WrestleMania. It's very enjoyable, and it's so much better than anything I thought that they were going to do. So shout out. I'm a fan. I liked it. Let me know what you guys thought, and thank you for watching this quick review of Unreal. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out some more right here. I got plenty, and do not forget to subscribe for daily pro wrestling content. Bye, everyone.